Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I want to talk about tracking bass lines and some of the things that you should be conscious of, to kind of prepare for recording bass, and also just some of the things that you have to work on before you actually get down in the trenches and start tracking. The one thing that I always forget until I actually start recording bass lines is that I forget how unforgiving a bass is in the headphones or the monitors. You're going to hear every rattle. You're going to hear every little, string scrape. You're going to hear every single little nuance of how you fret the note and attack the note. And so it's really, really important that you work on having your technique clean, with really precise fretting. Make sure that you're not pressing too hard, but hard enough so all your notes are clean. And in the thumbnail, jokingly, there's going to be the word meat. And why that word is there is because meat is super important when you're tracking bass. To keep everything clean, you have to constantly be keeping the pads of your fingers, both hands, in the palm of your right hand, just in there, keeping those strings nice and quiet and only allowing the articulated note that you intend to hit to go through. Otherwise, your recording is going to end up having all sorts of nasty little noises in it, things that may not be noticeable in a mix, but I know that I will do a retake if I hear a note that just doesn't quite hit clean, or if I hear, an overtone from a string that wasn't properly muted. So anyway, I just want to go over really quickly how I record the bass just from a technological standpoint. I run through my GK 400 watt head, and I basically just use the DI out. I do it post EQ so that I use the whole EQ section. So I basically use my bass head as a preamp. Then I just quite simply run that into my outboard compressor and then straight into the interface, and that is it. I just use basically a DI box into a compressor into the interface. All right, with that out of the way, I just wanted to talk a little bit about your left hand or fretting hand technique. What you want to do when you're going to articulate a note is you just want to make sure that, what I do is I make sure the tip of my finger is muting the string above, if there is a string above. If you're on the E string, that obviously won't be an issue. And then the rest of my fingers resting on the strings to make sure that they are not ringing out. So if you're on the E, your other hand, when you're on the E, your hand is basically muting your A, D, and G strings. And then when you move down, same thing. I just make sure that my fingertip stays there so that it's muting that E string. And then, just keeping everything nice and quiet. Make sure you're keeping flesh on all the strings that you're not intending to hit. And then coming into play also is your friend, your plucking hand or picking hand, depending on your style. And what I do is I do the classic, thumb on the pickup, and I am playing a P bass, obviously. You can do this on most any bass, has some sort of thumb rest area, or, you just use a pickup. And then I just, go from E to A to D to G, and I just move my thumb up and down, and between the two, using the two hands together to make sure to keep all the strings nice and quiet, you should be able to get nice, clean bass lines. And working on those techniques are part of just learning how to play bass in the first place. But however, if you've mainly played live or mainly in rehearsals or just jamming around and things like that, you may not notice just how noisy things really are until you get into the studio. And that's where you'll really refine your playing. I find that, when I'm playing live, I have a tendency to really attack the strings, and I like clackety clack. I like to have a lot of character. I don't mind if there's fret buzzing and things like that to a certain extent. But the moment I get into the studio, I become a little one finger wonder, and I'm just very, very quick and agile and very quiet. I let the amplifier do the work. I let my compressor just kind of help even things out. I'm not using it as a crutch to, basically, fix something that I'm doing wrong. It is there just in case I do hit a little bit harder here and there, just to smooth things over a little bit. I'm only using a 3-to-1 ratio, so it's there just in case I do get a little too excited in places, or if I'm a little too quiet in places. But like I was trying to articulate earlier and failing, I'm not using it to basically paint over the fact that I'm playing poorly or I'm playing with too much dynamics. So anyway, just very, very light touch. I make sure that all my fretting is very, very precise and that I'm keeping everything muted. I'll even throw my thumb up there over that like that to make sure that E string isn't ringing out when I'm playing on the D and the G. So I just kind of wanted to go over a little bit of what you should be paying attention to when you get ready to record bass lines. I really think too, making sure that your instrument is perfectly intonated is super important, and that it's all mechanically sound. You want to have strings that are well stretched, that won't go out of tune. You want to make sure that your bass, like I said, stays in tune well and is perfectly intonated as you can get it. Because if you start playing in the upper registers of the bass and the notes are just a little bit off, that is really going to stick out in the mix. And if the bass itself is out of tune, you're going to hear it. It is going to be very, very apparent, and it can be a track killer. So make sure that your bass is in good shape, and you should be doing pretty well. Light touch, lots of meat on the strings just to keep things nice and quiet. And you should be well on your way to getting studio quality bass lines in the privacy of your own home. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you've watched the video to this point, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. Shares are also greatly appreciated. And the comments. Is there anything that I left out about just things to look for before you get started tracking bass, and what kind of techniques you should use to get the cleanest, nicest bass results that you can? All right. Take care. We'll see you next time.